Hey, my creative friends. My name is Shannon from shannonstudio.com. And we are here to talk about a creative life. What it looks like, what we can do to have more of a creative life, maybe some mind shifts to help us be more creative. Hey, Trisha. So we talk about creativity and a little bit about Sweden since I'm living in Sweden. I've been living here for a year. But I don't really have anything today other than it just rained a lot today. And had my little bike ride to the store this morning, did a little shopping, and yeah. So tonight we are going to hey boyfriend. Something that I did with my kids was when they were young, I told them they had to learn a language and learn to play an instrument. So those were the two requirements. Those were the two expectations. And to define the expectation, I always look up in the dictionary. So I looked it up, and expectation means something necessary, something expected. It's anticipated. It's an anticipated occurrence with an outcome. So they were expected to learn a language and an instrument. Now, the interesting thing was that when we said this, and we said it often, but there was really no reward or punishment with it. It was just like, this is what our family does, this is what you do. The only stipulation on it was that if you can't afford to buy your own instrument of something you want to learn, then you'll have to play the piano because we already have one. So that was the expectation. And we never talked about a timeline. We never talked about anything like that. So it made me think of this quote from Emotional First Aid book, Emotional First Aid. When we fail at tasks in which our expectations for success are low, the psychological wounds failure inflicts relatively minor. Sometimes I don't read things quite right. When we fail at tasks in which our expectations for success are low, the psychological wounds failure inflicts are relatively minor. So that's, and I kind of felt like that expectation really didn't affect me. There was really no reward or punishment that we put on it as parents because, one, I knew that the reward would be learning the instrument, or the reward would be being able to speak a different language. To me, those were the rewards, and they really had nothing to do with me. Playing an instrument, the rewards, same with the language. Well, both. They were both. Same with the language and the instrument. And the punishment, it was, I remember one of the piano teachers of one of my kids, because some of them had teachers, some of them didn't, sort of thing. One of them complained and was really angry about the fact that I didn't make them practice. And to me, I told them this. I said, I realized that if I made them practice, they would go faster. I said, but I am okay if they don't go fast or learn quickly, as quickly as they would if I made them practice. I'm okay with that. The idea is for them to learn. I don't really care how long it takes. So I threw out almost the expectation of a vision of what was expected, but my expectations for them were very low. And so it wasn't this painful thing all the time. It wasn't this drive. So I think that when we look at expectations, we have to kind of really look at the nuances of expectations and how that plays out. So then there's one of my kids talking about they want to, and I try to always veil who it is. And I have 9 kids, so you know what? It could be any of them. They want to do something, but they are hedging or not doing it, not completing it, not engaging because of what people close to them are saying. And it's interesting to me because as I'm listening to this, they're determining their actions according to other people's expectations. And they are missing out on things that they would truly want to do because of what others are determining, and that they are embracing that or caving into that, whichever. So then that is a lot of times what happens to a lot of us. And I think particularly as young adults, it happens when you're kids, but you always have your mom or dad to blame. That was always, my mom won't let me do this, my dad won't let me, but when you become a young adult, I think it's really starts to, or out on your own, it starts to really be amplified for you because there is nobody to step in for you. So some of the things in this, what book is this? Let Me Out? They talk about others' expectations and caving into others' expectations. And sometimes that will be doing something beneath our standards or immoral, or something like gossiping, laughing, going along with somebody. We lean into somebody else's dream at the expense of our own dreams, or we make decisions based on their expectations. So those are some of the ways in which we do it. They give an exercise in this book, which I found very interesting. I've never done it, but I think it's very interesting. They said, take that scenario, whatever it is, and take the whole thing, but instead now rewrite it with another outcome. So rewrite it as if you acted and did what you really wanted to do. Hey, Desiree. So taking, sometimes we do act and do things other people want us to do. So instead, step back, take that situation and rewrite it into what you would do if you did what you really wanted to do. So there were several things that they said that came out of that. First, you'll start to see who you really are, who you really want to be, the essence of who the person is underneath that wants to be out. The second thing is that there's capacity to growth. You can see how you can change. And I think this is one of the more important ones too. It gives you strength. It's almost like role playing. So it gives you strength for the next time to be able to move into making the decisions and not acting on somebody else's expectations. So I thought that was a great exercise idea from that book to really take hold of something that maybe turned out negatively for us, to turn it into a positive, to change the trajectory of future decision making that we have. So I thought that was a great exercise. Let's see. Research. Oh, okay. In the same book, it says kind of flips expectations. It says it's the times we've come up short of our expectations that give us what is arguably our most important life lessons. So even though we might have caved, we can learn some great lessons out of it. I was talking to one of my kids, and they were thinking about previous thoughts and decisions that they thought they should do. Then when they didn't do it, they played out according to what somebody else had expected of them. And then now they're looking back about, I kind of felt like I shouldn't have done that, but I did it anyways. And so they're learning that process and that life lesson. So I think it's not like if you cave in, it's the end of the world if you fall into somebody else's expectation. But what I do think it does is it can rob you of your following your own choices. And that happens to go with in the book, Let Me Out, self-determination theory. So self-determination theory proposes that people have built-in yearning to determine the course of their lives. Yeah, duh. every parent that has a teenage kid that's getting to be 17 or 18, that autonomy starts kicking in and they want to do whatever they want to do. One of our kids, you know, great kid, got along well with everybody in the family, but when they turned 17, it was like all of a sudden they got argumentative, and you know, and like I was holding them back and all these things. And I had to say, you know what, this is the process that goes on with your age, that you want the autonomy and you're trying to, you know, self-determine. The self-determined theory coming out in play. I didn't know it was called self-determined theory, but determination theory, but now I do. I just said it's the autonomy you want. This is the natural process of you going out. So that happened for about a year, and then after they were out on their own, it was like, oh, what, you know, that was so weird that we didn't get along then. And I'm going, it wasn't so much we as you were in that process of wanting to move into adulthood. So the quote continues. I'll start from the beginning. Self-determination theory proposes that people have built-in yearning to determine the course of their lives. And when that yearning is set free, people are happier and more creative and live richer lives. That sums it up. When we are set free of other people's expectations of us, or even our own unreasonable or extreme expectations, then we can be happier, we're more creative. They've done, you know, well, you're more creative or richer lives. That's what we're looking for. That's what I'm looking for. I believe it's what you're looking for. To be creative, to be happier, to have a richer life. Those are goals. And then, so we have to look at this expectations. And I think a lot of us play into that, and sometimes we don't even realize how we might slide into that, because sometimes it's just easier to go along with whoever it is. You don't want to put up with the hassle. But I think you and I having our own happiness, our own creativity, and our own richer life is worth the discussion, is worth the, you know, practice it if you have to. I remember with my kids, you know, teaching them how to talk on the phone. I would role play with them. I would sit on the phone and I would, you know, they'd say, well, I want to, you know, I'd say, hello, this is Dr. So-and-so's office. And they would say, I'd like to make an appointment. I said, well, what for? You know, we would role play, and I'd try to throw them off and all these things. Maybe you and I have to role play or write that letter of outcome so that we can see what it would look like, what it could feel like when we have this change. So we have this opportunity to change. In the book, Everything is Figure Outable, it says, researchers are learning that a change in mindset has the power to alter neurochemistry. So if we can shift that thinking and rewrite that outcome even before we do the thing we don't want to do, but practice writing it in real life, but then that gives our brain something to go by, so that when we're in that situation again, we can change how we approach it. And then, well, in this book, Everything's Figure Outable, she says, you know that you can change your neurochemistry, because that happens, that when a snake is on, like when you see danger, like you're walking on a path, you see a snake, all of a sudden everything changes physically, like you're on alert, you start, you know, your heart pounds and stuff. You know that feeling when something comes up like that and you switch like that, and the physiological changes that happen, that can happen, you know, that change in mindset can happen. You can change you know, if you're living in a place where you are following somebody else's expectations or following your own extreme expectations, you can change that. It is within your power. And this book, Let Me Out, had a couple more exercises. So if you're interested in that, you can check that out. So that's the tip tonight. Watch for those extreme expectations. Watch for any expectations of others and set yourself free from them. All right, let's see. Yeah. I will be back tomorrow. In the meantime, remember you have a creative heartbeat, so listen for it. And bye for now.